everybody, welcome to another episode of the Road to 150. It's only April 20th, and I noticed we have a ton more to go for this. So, with me today is your owner of the channel, your one half champion of the playoff best ball, the ever so dope Hope. Hope, how you doing?
I'm awesome, Davis. I am awesome. Another day talking best ball. Can't wait. I will say this last couple weeks have been a little tough not having, we've had the Superflex contest, but it just closed and it's weird. It's so weird, right? Opening the Underdog app and not having something to go draft. I think it's super strange right now and it's a weird time in the space. But I'm excited. We're 1 week away. We got the first Best Ball Mania 4 teas today from the people over at Underdog, and so we're excited about that.
I mean, you're right. There's not anything to draft today, but we have stuff that could come out. I don't think anyone expected these to fill as fast as they did, right? I think we're just way ahead of schedule. Like, we're just shoving things out there. Everybody's maxing. Everyone's just doing streams, and everyone's jumping in drafts. Like, I'm assuming everybody I know has at least 20 of something of like every format. It's pretty bad these days. So best ball's popping. Like, it's a thing now. Like, we are slowly but surely establishing ourselves as a real fantasy format, like the big dogs like Redraft and Dynasty and Debbie and even DFS. Like, we're getting up there. So I'm excited. And it's only April 20th. Like, oh my God, that's crazy. So we already hopped into a private draft, guys. There's 3 spots left for the Superflex on UD. If you guys want to hop in it, just get
if you guys want to. Yeah,
we can just spread it up. And that's all we have right now because there isn't a lot going on, and the draft is going on next week.
It's the $5, by the way. The $5 cash game, waiting on 3. It's got 9 out of 12 if people want to draft. We'll hop into that in a minute. So it's not a private draft. It's just the open one.
Public draft.
Public draft, $5, 12 person. Needs 3 more, but
needs 3 more, and so, it's $5.
Some interesting stuff came out from our good friend, our good pal. I say that, Leone, over at ETR. What was your initial takeaway when you read it? Some of the new stuff. Oh, it Snapfield on us.
Okay.
Kind of what was your initial
101? Like, this is gonna be great.
Initial reaction.
103. Yes.
Wow, you got the 103.
Welcome to the. Oh, are you in the back?
Of 110. Course, 110.
This is like the most
Steph's in here.
Pointless 103 for me. Oh, we got Paul again.
You don't want to win that $32. Yep, Tarek got in. FFG has 11 slows. Superflex is open still. I love it. We saw Eagles told us today he's in like 125 slows in the Superflex. I just couldn't imagine. An hour. I'm down to my last slow from the big board. It's the one I was telling you about. I'm doing with my friends. We're in the 8. We just made our 18th round pick, Jerome Ford. We might look at that team and have you kind of break it down and see what you think of that team later. But it was fun.
First off, I would like to say that it's not Eagles anymore. It's Steelers. Okay, Steelers, first I got his name correct. He's now the Steelers. And yeah, like, I forgot you were doing that draft. That's kind of cool though, to get like your buddies to just chime in on this team. And like, the best part is you get to sweat it out together.
Exactly.
It advances.
Yeah, this is Ryan. He's in on this draft that I'm talking about. We just picked Jerome Ford in the 18th round. So we'll bring that team up later and we'll talk about it, get your opinion on it. I think it's a pretty good team. Where it's pretty, a little thin at quarterback, but we're excited.
Yeah, Superflex draft and you're thin at quarterback. All right.
No, it's a regular big board. We're still in the regular big board. Still drafting, yeah.
I forgot those still existed.
Yeah, the last one.
I'm very unexciting. I'm the 103. I took Jalen Hurts because that's what fell at me. I have been a little bit more open in these to like kind of wanting Joe Burrow. So I've been kind of wishing I was at 105 more often. I love Joe Burrow in this format, but format's done. Wait till your pick, and then we can talk a little bit about the Leone thread. He left, which he made a big thread. He made a manifesto. It's a 4-part. If you haven't read it, it counts as a book. Like, if anyone ever asks you read a book, this manifesto counts as a book. So please, like, go check it out. And it's very data heavy. First thing I would say, and also it's on the legendary upside with Pat Carrane's podcast. So if you need a audible version, because I'm an audible guy, and I can't read as much as most people can, you can catch that version too. So I would say catch them both.
I didn't even know there was that. I knew he went on his podcast, but I didn't know.
It's not really an audible, but I just call it the audible version.
Okay, I was like, I knew he went on a podcast, but
some people don't want to read an entire book, but their podcast was like an hour and 10 minutes. I think it covers a good chunk. So once
absolutely super.
Do either or do both. It's huge. So it's the Best Ball Manifesto. First thing I want to say, it's like right off the bat, I know it's a lot of data. It talks about stacking. It talks about ADP values, which I know my buddy here, Hope, loves ADP values. And then week 17, it talks about all the points and how to give yourself, and I want to make this, correct me if I'm wrong, the micro edges to win, right? Like it's little things that can increase your chances to win, not a definitive way to win. And that's what the first thing my takeaway is, just to stress that out to people. It's like, this is not a guaranteed way of how to win best ball. And no one's claiming that, by the way. Leone himself did not claim that he knows how to win best ball. So that was my first takeaway. What was about yours?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I loved it. Confirmed a lot of my priors, the way I build teams. It's talked about the elite teams based off his model, finished, drafted, heavier wide receiver early, which again, I think a point in the buckets is interesting in his, because you see the people who put too much draft capital into running back didn't do good, but that doesn't mean you don't take any early running backs, right? That just means if you do, you know how to balance out your roster construction by then waiting, right? And so like, I think that was one point that's a little confusing, because you see like, devoting a lot of capital to RBs is bad, which is true, but that doesn't, mean don't take a single early RB, right? It just means know how to allocate your draft capital. But yeah, seeing that stacking for week 17, like everything from this manifesto that I tried to do last year and I believe in was, pretty much confirmed as working last year and giving you a higher upside in the playoff weeks, especially. And, stacking showed to give you a better advance rate chance as well as the ADP value. So I think confirmed a lot of my priors, but again, it's based off 1 year's results, and that a lot can change year to year in the way you win. And so, yeah, I just think it's a really good baseline, kind of like when you play DFS, like projections now are like kind of like the baseline, right? Like the table stakes having projections. It feels like stacking week 17 now are the best ball table stakes, in my opinion. Like it's kind of a given, but that's my opinion on it.
One of the things I took away from just listening to it, reading it, I haven't finished it. I'm only like 2.5 ways through. Like I said, it's a big book. It's just controlled chaos, right? Best ball, I will tell you, and I think anyone that's played the game at all will say it's the most chaotic fantasy sport, right? Like when you think about it, there is no control to it. There's nothing you can do that will inherently make you win. You can't guarantee advance rates. You can't guarantee what's going to happen today up into week 17. So you're just trying to control what you can control, which is what stacking's all about. It's putting your money into a bucket and betting on this offense or betting on this game, betting on whatever that situation is. And I think that's one of those things like it reminded me of like, hey, it's not a way to win the game, but it is a way to control what you can. And it's controlled chaos, right? When you take 3 guys from the Bengals, you're saying, I have faith in these 3 guys in this game or this specific scenario to kind of pay out. But if I take 1 Bengal, 1 Dolphin and like 1 Seahawk, I'm like, hey, I got to hope all 3 of these guys go off in 3 different games in 3 different locations, 3 different weathers, 3 different stadiums, all sorts of situations. Right. 2 of them can be home games, 1 can be an away, or all 3 can be away games. Like you're asking to control a lot. If there's no control, it's all chaos. And it was a great reminder that like, just say like you can only control what you can, and that's your picks, right? And that's just like I said, it's just really strong in that portion. ADP values, I was a little iffy on, but I do get the point of it. It's to like you're gaining value against somebody else. I'm very projection based on my own projections, and So I have always kind of drafted against the river. I get like against like the stream of people. So I'm always a little bit different, but I think from a broad stroke standpoint, that makes sense. If you're getting James Conner 30 picks later, that's great because you got James Conner 30 picks later. Like there is a own value in that course too. And if your
Yeah,
whole draft is value hounding, I can't say it won't do well.
I think a big thing with the ADP value is how sharp you think the market is, and which I tend to believe that it's pretty sharp nowadays as far as like getting it right, with ADPs. So I think getting the value is super important. I mean, it just by nature you're building a stronger team and by getting that value. So I think it's super, super important. Obviously, if you don't believe in a player, don't just take them because of ADP value, or if you don't take, an ADP drop over completing a stack, in my opinion, little stuff like that are kind of some of the nuances. But yeah, no, it's super, super important.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of that gray area stuff that was covered but not covered at the same time. It's like, hey, like maybe you don't want the value, you want that stack. I mean, an article, like I said, once again, this manifesto talks about like sometimes the stack is just worth it if you believe in that stack. And like I said, this is all broad stroke. I know there's a ton of new fantasy people. I got a ton of messages or notifications last night about just whatever I was posting. Everyone's like, "This is my first year. This is my first year. Hey, this is my first year." And I was just like, "Oh God," there's like I forget that I'm old. No, I'm just saying. I just forget. I forget that it's been around for a minute for us, but not for everybody. So it's
No,
just a good reminder that these guys are going to get new, and then just that best ball as a whole, it's very gray still, very new. And it's like I said, it's chaotic as it can be. What else do you think of it? I mean, there's talking about methodology on the article. They're talking about just so much. I tried to scroll through this earlier, and there's no way. My mouse broke.
yeah, I think speaking to your point on how young best ball is, like I tweeted something out today. I quote tweeted Rudman's tweet about Best Ball Mania 1 and how he's like, this feels like ages ago. And I was like, I quote tweeted it saying, I didn't know what underdog was when Best Ball Mania 1 was a thing, let alone best ball. Like I grew up playing redraft. Then I went over to DFS probably 4 or 5 years ago. I started playing DFS. I didn't really know what best ball was until I learned it, honestly, from like Peach Streams a few years ago. And so it's just amazing now, like how much it's grown within the fantasy space and how big it's going to get too.
I cracked up a little bit because like you say best ball mania, I'm still thinking of drafters, not drafters, but drafts, which was
Yeah,
like
I had no clue what draft was at all.
drafts was like a super predecessor to them, run by the same
Right.
guys, and they actually ran way more flatter rates. That's how I got into this. I got into it because of an ad from fantasy footballers. They were just like, "Hey, go try out drafts if you want to do a manage less." Yeah, see, Josh, manage list,
Not me.
fantasy team, and I got into it from there, and I'm someone that's like have a little bit of an ego at times. Like I like to say that I'm right or prove that I'm right. And I remember like those are
No.
years. No, but hey, you laugh, but I've gotten there. So I was very in on Todd Gurley when Sean McVay went there, and I was like, Todd Gurley in the second round, like this is gonna do so much work. And I did drafts. I just drafted like nothing but Todd Gurley, and I man just like carried all my teams to the semis and drafts. And like back to back years, I just kept drafting all the Todd Gurley I could get. And I just like that's my introduction. And then from then, when they didn't have that 1 year, and then Best Ball Underdog opened their first tournament, I happened to start content writing because I wanted to write content. This was during COVID pandemic. And then they were like, we need someone that can do best ball. And I'm like, oh, that's me. I know how to do best ball, weirdly enough. Like I've made a lot of semis and like, gotten pretty far with like 5 entries. So that's how I was. And like I said, but the game has grown. We were talking about this before. It's like the game went from being consistency to like, oh, you got to get the 10-point guys, the guys that can get you points every week, to now we're talking about, hey, wide receiver spike weeks are like where it's at, to now week 17. And none of these are wrong in any case, but it's like we have grown every year substantially. And now that social media is just at its peak of passing information.
Right.
Like how big of a deal is wide receiver? I mean, if we talked a couple of years ago, people would have been still going heavy on running backs. And now we know that I do think that some of the landscape has changed, that we feel differently about running backs as a whole, because we don't have any big namers like we used to. But you only need one these days, right? You need one anchor, or you just need a lot of like zero type guys, and you get there. So it's kind of cool. I like to see how the game has changed. There's no such thing as a right way besides, drafting like one QB3 and trying to run it deep, but that kind of situations, like outliers. But like the game isn't crazy, and I think this manifesto has like really proven that. And I still think it's still infancy. To me, this is like the first book to new poker. And if anyone that's done poker knows that poker evolved like crazy over the last 15 years.
What do you think about Vapor? Do you think we get another contest at all? Because I have an opinion on it, but before the draft next week, I think no. I think if we were going to, it would have dropped today.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get it.
I really
think what's
if we
gonna
were
happen is they're
get
too afraid that it's not going to fill, or that the draft will kind of overtake it. Because I could see a lot of people going, "Well, I'm gonna wait till the draft kicks off," right? Like I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I think that's. I mean, big board and stuff already closed.
You think they might? Wait, sorry, I missed that. Did you say you think they might draft like Best Ball Mania right as the first round is starting, or you think it's gonna be till Monday?
After, I think it's gonna be after. I think we're talking like the first week of May.
I just think it's gonna be that Monday, in my opinion, like the Monday
Possible.
after.
Well, I mean, yeah, May 1st. May 1st.
Oh, thank FanDuel. Yeah.
Yeah, FanDuel. I saw your comment, Jason. I cracked up, and I was like, yeah, FanDuel dropped the ball super hard on that one. But you know what? Screw them. They had the opportunity. They had the product.
You know how I think about this. I kind of agree at this point about, obviously there's more to it, and I know you're kind of, you're joking and everything, but it's essentially true. Like for 40% of your lineup at least, like you want to have it optimized for that last week, and then fill in around there, like mix in player takes for sure, but absolutely, it's like one big DFS slate, really. The whole season is.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's the part that I truly agree on, that you do have to build for week 17 at, like you said, about a 40% rate. And the one thing is I will say, and this is what I always have to remind everybody in fantasy sports, is like, as good as we are, quote unquote, we're also terrible, right? Like our ADPs, like I said, are never going to be that accurate. We get a couple hits here and there, right? Like some guy can project Isaiah Pacheco, but he probably got, like James Robinson incorrect and thought that, he would take ETN's job. Like you get that all the time. So when we talk about planning for week 17, what you're telling me is that you believe that you can guess how good offenses and defenses are 6 months in advance. And guessing which game goes off is super tough. Like, last year, anyone would have said Bills and Bengals. We'll give them an asterisk because that was a whole weird situation. But Chargers and Rams, right? Like everyone was on Chargers.
The Rams did go off, to be fair. Akers and Higbee.
Not at the receiver position, though.
Akers and Higbee both did. I know, but
But none of the Chargers.
I think that's a good example of why you stack it up anyway and correlate, anyway, because you don't know what pieces. Like that's one thing. Week 17, like that's another thing I'm gonna have more of an open mind to this year is stacking up any and every week 17 game, not caring that
there we go.
Got to be Bills Bengals, right? Like, and I did that for the most part. Like I was stacking up, was it Jags Texans? Like I'll stack up any week 17 game. It doesn't have to be like the premier matchup. Obviously, I would prefer that, of course.
And I think that's what I was trying to lead to, right? That's what I'm leading to. It's like taking shots at a couple week 17s versus just like the hot ones, because who knows, right? Like Kirk Cousins and them just completely, like the Green Bay Vikings is on paper really, really going to be a shit. And I know someone has said, I thought they were going to be bad. I get it. But the majority, I would say the field thought that there would be some fantasy relevancy for Justin Jefferson and Kirk.
Right? It's Algier, baby. Shout out Davis Maddox.
Like I said, like no one wanted the Falcons last year. Like
it almost hit. It was Algier McBride like hit.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
So it's when we're saying 6 week months, you still got to guess you still got to guess double digit games, double digit teams. So that's one of the things I just always want to remind people about that. But yeah, that's basically my point on that portion. And I do think though that is a smart way to play the game. Like you have to stack at least about 40%. Uh,
Yeah.
would you lean on? Let's say we had to do it. Obviously, we don't know who's playing what or what's going on, but do you think there's a position that you probably wouldn't stack or
And
stack less of? Because like last year, we saw Pat's team single quarterbacks, single running backs do really well, right? Eckler, Saquon, well, Saquon not necessarily, but Eckler was his non-stacked, or tight end. Maybe the tight end doesn't matter. Maybe you just want Kittle, or
I mean,
maybe you
I
just
don't.
want Kelsey or Goddard or whoever's in there. I mean,
I
are you
would
stacking the
say
quarterbacks and receivers only?
no. I
Quarterback,
don't.
tight end.
I don't look at it that way. I'll stack any which way a team gets stacked. I'll do QB, running back, QB, running back, wide. I mean, that doesn't necessarily matter to me. Obviously, I'd probably prefer just QB, wide receiver, tight end, or QB, wide receiver, of course, because it's the most correlated. But no, I'm not going into it looking to. I don't know. I just don't draft that way. I'm not. I don't predetermine what I'm going to stack before I go into a draft. Or
See, this is where you're wrong. There's remember that time Des Bryant threw a touchdown to Tony Romo? So that stack was really good, okay? In week 7
okay, you could just say,
for the
all right.
finals, week 16 in 2015, okay? Just throwing out there. I actually lost to that, by the way, if you want to know, for like redraft. I actually lost to that Des Bryant throwing a touchdown. But yeah, I think
I know you kind of shy away from QB running back a little bit,
I do a
right?
bit because I just don't think there's many. Stephanie remembers. Thanks,
Cowboys
Steph.
fan Stephanie remembers.
Hey, I remember a lot of dumb things, and that was one of the things I lost to, so I never forget. Um, I just find it hard to stack quarterback, running back. There's only a few I would consider. Saquon was one because he can catch touchdowns. Mixon, a guy that could catch some touchdowns or has a role too.
Yeah.
Najee with Pickett would be one, but like I don't know how good I felt about like stacking Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders. You know what I mean? Like Jalen Hurts doesn't pass to Miles Sanders, let alone not vulture his touchdowns. So I do lean away from a bit of it. Is there a truth to it? I think we all agree that there is, but it's not fruitful like 100%. And like then obviously like Eckler Herbert is another one as pointed out in the chat. Like yeah, of course, like we're taking those, right? But I just think there's a lot of people that don't hit
I
in
think
that
though
regard.
stacking an offense is trying to capture all of a team's touchdowns, right? You play for the Eagles are going to score 40 in week 17 versus the Saints, and you know Sanders could rush two, Hurts could rush one or two, and pass one or two.
But
Like
like, would you stack like
obviously, it's
Derrick
not the
Henry,
most.
Tannehill? You know what I'm saying? Like that's why it's like
I've
it's
won a few
super low.
GPPs over the years. There was a week a Tannehill, Henry, AJ Brown took down the Millie, I believe, a
Yeah,
couple years ago. But see, I
very
don't know. I'm not saying like I'm trying to do it or like I would prefer the pass catchers, of course, but it's not something I shy away from.
agreed. Like I said, I don't think it's a total anti because you're right. Like if Vegas has that game at 55 points that week, I want that offense. I want those two games going off because they're going to go off. Going into the season in April, I don't know. I shy against enough. I'm getting good value on players. Like I want guys who are just going to do work. I want a high-powered offense, right? I took a ton of Mixon and Burrow, but like they said, it helps. It helps in its own right, and it helps in any possible way. Dolphins not the Stone. If you're, as a Dolphins fans, we don't have running backs. We have a rotation of whatever came through our door. I mean, we haven't had a running back since like Lamar Miller. Like realistically, if you think about it, like our last real running back was Lamar Miller, and that's sad.
You want to take my fourth QB?
But like I said, I don't know. I would consider maybe tight end as another one I'm not trying to stack too heavy on because I don't think every tight end is vital to a lot of offenses. Like, and you see this quite a bit when people come in like, well, I got Joe Burrow, I got to stack Hayden Hurst, right? Or like I have this, I have to do that too. And I'm just like, do we know if this tight end's going off? If you had Baker last year,
We don't know. I mean, you can't predict the future. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, you don't. But I'm just doing off like projections of likelihoodness of like, if I think the tight end is amazing, sure, like I'll take the stack. I just don't think you can take every tight end 3 and think he's gonna go off.
Yeah, but I just think like if you need just a random third tight end on your team, why not take the extra correlation for the stack? God, Jahan Dotson goes. Unfortunate.
For tiebreaker purposes, of course. I just don't think there's as many times. You have 4 quarterbacks. What the hell? Oh, that makes sense. Tiebreaker purposes, it makes sense. I'm just talking about like in a vacuum how I feel about them.
Right.
Um,
You know what? I don't pick a lot of him. I'm gonna take some upside here.
ew. Oh God, gross.
It is gross.
Ew. I was on a show where we were talking about like Javante Williams injuries versus
It's
like
scary.
how
It is scary, but
it's like he has such negative news versus like what Brees Hall has right now. Completely opposite. And I think Brees hurt himself after Javante Williams.
yeah.
It's insane to me.
No, it's scary stuff about Javante, but you know what? We're gonna close the season strong with him.
Hey, you know what? Like you said,
Speaking
week
Davis's
17.
language with this comment here, and I agree on it. I think two. I'm more of a two minimum on my stacks, but you know it depends on the quarterback. Like if it's Justin Fields or something, a single stack is perfectly acceptable. Or Lamar.
Yeah, I try not to do more than two. I think if I've seen people stack 3 to 4 on a team, and I'm always like, that's rough. You know, like in my
Right.
mind, it's excessive. I think two is like a perfect fit. After that, it's a skinny stack for me. But a two and a bring back is like I think that's where it's at. Especially if you're going for week 17. If I think that Dolphins Bills is going to be the nuts, then I'm taking 2 Dolphins and a Bill or 2 Bills and a Dolphin. But I don't think I'm going to take 4 Dolphins and 4 Bills, especially when you look at like we talked about on our last stream. Outside of Waddle, like what's there pass catching wise, right? Outside of Gabe Davis as of right now, and like Gabe
You
Davis
talking
and
about
Dawson
for
Knox,
wide
it's
receiver
like,
two?
yeah, there's not many teams that not their team doesn't have a 2 on the Dolphins after a 2. They just got Waddle, Tyreek, and we're questionable. Are you picking up Chosen Anderson, for the tiebreaker? Like
No.
I'm not. So that
No,
kind
but
of stuff.
I think that's then where like the tight end comes in. But that is a good point. But if the Dolphins do like draft a third wide receiver or someone ends up their third, like I don't think tagging them on in the 18th round when you're tie breaking at that point is a bad idea.
I agreed with Paul on that one. He says it's a tough click because it's cash game. Like, does he pay out?
Yeah, I mean I was just drafting, like I'm so in my mind of like drafting how I draft, not thinking like cash
It's a
game
cash game.
versus that's something that is so totally true. That's why you can tell I don't do a lot of cash games. I wasn't even thinking about
Cash
that
games.
aspect of it. I'm like, oh yeah, Javante will come on along in the playoffs and get me there in week 17 when it's cumulative points, but that makes sense. Got to
And then
consider your format, people.
yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough to like flip this switch, as Paul just said.
Yeah, I basically don't because like we don't do many cash games, but yeah,
I mean, we got to remind ourselves to take Justin Jefferson soon. 101.
Yeah. It's gonna be weird going back from the super flex, even though I know we didn't do a ton of them.
Hey, speak for yourself. I'm about 27, I think, something like that. I have like a small little group
Yeah,
of
well,
people that
exactly. We didn't do a ton of them, so
I have a ton of 110s right now that are going to win it all. I am so used to drafting running back first at this point. I had so much CMC. I lived in the 110. Me, Steph, and Van are all in the 110 zone right now. Oh man, let's see. So we covered positions, basketball from, and I guess my last question, like, is we're talking about a little about how Leon is seeing us is best ball ever going to be figured out at this? Like, I know ETR puts up the best data. ETR is like the nuts when it comes to just peak content,
right.
but I also feel like it's so far away. Do you think it's possible to even be formulaic at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting there. We'll get closer, and the I don't know
Like in comparison to DFS, right? Like
No, I
DFS,
don't
like
think it'll be DFS because of people will build bots that will draft for them, but it just depends on
Robo James.
how good those get, and they'll get really good. Let's see. I'm gonna make this pick first. I'm gonna take Zay.
Boo! Why would you take the future Dolphin like that? You don't even have the stack.
But I think that I don't know. It's tough to say. I hope it never gets solved, right? Like I don't want to go up against computers when drafting, but there's still always going to be that element of having to like build the right structure to teams and being live in the draft, getting that value and things like that. So I think it's gonna be tough. I think it's at least
So
gonna be a long way off.
what would you think it would take for it to be formulaic, right? Like obviously April,
We need a
there's no
lot more.
way. But let's say it gets to August. We're in August, and you're like, okay, this is when things are figured out, right? Like, or as best as it can be coming into a full season. What what would it I guess my question would be is like, what do you think would need to be solved, right? Like, do
I
we
think
have to find a way to maybe bet with Vegas on all the what their prediction is of who is in the playoffs, division winners? Is that what's going to take? Like we just get division winners nailed down perfectly. Therefore, that inherently means that these offenses will be good.
I agree with this. I would love to draft against bots.
Beep boop.
I think
I know
if
that's not a
you
real way I
ever,
said that.
yeah, it's just tough. Like if you could get to a point where you knew exactly like how many of each position to have by a certain round, and if we had sample after sample after sample of season, that could eventually kind of solve that puzzle. Maybe, but then like I mean, there's always going to be new stuff to be learned about best ball, and the fact that it is an entire season's worth of like just variety and outcomes. Like it's not week to week like DFS. I just think it's going to be a lot harder to get solved.
Yeah, like I said, I think once we can, I guess like I said, the way I would relate it is once we could, if there was ever a way to figure out for sure bets what teams made to playoffs, I think that'd be the first step. Like if there was just some way they got to the point, they're like, hey, we know that these two out of these four guys in division are going to be the nuts. Like these are going to be the teams. These two, NFC East is going to have these two, NFC South going to have these two. Then we can start to put together that. But I think right now predicting win losses is like
Yeah, I mean
so tough.
you can't do that. Like it's never
Exactly.
you're never going to be able to nail it down, and like injuries is that like it being an entire year. I mean, you can't even project injuries on a single DFS slate, but a year long worth of injuries. I mean, it's so tough. But
It's a scene. What a dick. That's funny. I like that. But like I said, it's just, and I think that's why I find it impossible to figure out, especially even right now when we do redraft. Like we're trading so often, we're picking up so many waivers. It's ridiculous. And now DFS is solved for a week. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, 17 weeks in which you draft your team months in advance, or even weeks in advance if you wait till the last minute. Like it's I don't know. It's just so far off, I believe.
Then you're not even throwing in the fact that these players are all individuals and things happen, right? Like who could predict Antonio Brown is just going to leave mid game? Like,
Right.
oh, those are my projections. Like he's like this far away from going Looney Tunes on us, and
I think we'll
Vontae
get
Davis
closer and
fits
closer and
halftime.
closer with as the more seasons go by and the more data we get, we'll keep getting closer with ideal roster construction, I think. Even though there's still always going to be multiple ways to win, but I think that would be one area. And then, like I said, knowing proper allocation of draft picks throughout a draft, those are kind of the two ways I think, quote, solvers, and solving could get there. But it's going to take a lot more data because we've seen so many different ways to win the first 3 years of Best Ball Mania. And so I don't know how, years and stuff I think it takes, but that's kind of the way I could see it maybe.
I mean, the closest thing I think we would have to do is kind of the way we do it for. I'm gonna sound like a nerd again. Card games, like there's always generally a limit or minimal you have to do. So like in Magic Gathering, if you have a low energy, mid range energy deck of some sort, like you only have 23 lands, right? 23 lands, 22 lands means that your deck is allocated at that minimum to operate correctly. We know this by math. Like the data has shown that that's what you do. And like I said, I think that relevant for best ball, that equals to stacking, roster construction style, right? Are you RB0? Are you anchor? Are you robust wide receiver, like elite quarterback, elite tight end? And I think it's just what it's going to be. It's just going to be, I think that's as close as we're ever going to get It's just going to come down to construction and how to properly construct based, and that's it, right? Not including projections because everyone's projections are different,
Right.
but just how to properly construct a team based on your projections.
I think that makes total sense.
I know. That's why we got to play Magic the Gathering, huh?
I might. I would probably enjoy it. I like deck building games.
I have met 4 people on Twitter now that all have been like, "Oh my god, thank you for the Magic the Gathering like combination on this. It makes way more sense." And I'm like, "Yes, we're gonna get there. That's
What
gonna be
what do you think on this as far as the bots could help you improve your decision making on the clock? As being like, yeah, and you could program a bot to draft. I think you could do that, but I like, and this one, bots improving on your on clock decision making.
Possible. I think it would require, based on what we do with our UD app now, you can set rankings. If they allow you to set numerous rankings and you could like assign a bot to draft that type of ranking,
Yeah.
like this is my RB0 ranking construction style, like possibly it would, I just think it would need like a tool to like interfere to do that, which I'm not smart enough to know about bots on how that would work, but that's how I think it would get there.
And that would be my thing is like, I don't know what it's going to tell you that you shouldn't or couldn't already know. Not to say like, oh, we're smarter than computers, because we're not. But, as far as like stacking goes and like know based off what you drafted and your roster construction and stuff like that, like I think, like how much better is that going to be than your own decision making? I guess I don't know. Like I know it's egotistical to think like, well, I could just do that myself. Like I can, I can make just as good of a decision as it would spit out to me. But I don't know. I kind of think that.
I mean, with bots though, it's just making the decision that you tell it to make, right? Like
this would be cool.
I don't think it would make
Rankings
the
that
best
adjust
decision
based off your previous picks, and then could change. It's like let you know, okay, improve. Stuff like that would be.
My bot would just be taking so much Michael Thomas. Beep boop, Michael Thomas, beep boop. Like, that's what it would be doing. It'd be so bad. I don't want that kind of bot, please.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about that. Our first battle this year.
Oh,
this is
yes.
true. Helping, because that is something that, helping you separate your bias when players are on the clock. I do think that could be a good feature of having a little bit of a solver. I mean, I try and do that already. I try and not have any bias, but you're going to naturally. So like, Zeke falls 25 picks past ADP or something.
Yeah, lean. Sometimes the value hound in you just can't pass up a value, right? So, oh yeah, that reminds me. So good point. You brought that up. So if you were on our Watch on Tuesday show, me and Hope debated against each other of Kadarius Toney versus Michael Thomas. I'm trying to figure out what we are trying to figure out is we're going to make a bet on it, but what should we do for bet purposes? Like, so obviously the bet's going to be simple. Who's going to get more fantasy points, right?
Okay. No, but is it simple? No, there's always got to be, are we going to have a minimum game?
Weeks?
No. It's fantasy points, but are we going to have like minimum games played for each? Like, do they both have to at least play in 12 games?
First off, it's these two guys haven't played more than 3. So like, I think we'd lose that bet if we were to talk about minimal 12 games. Like, I think right off the bat, I think it's like, who gets the most points? Like because considering that these guys are both injury or off the field guys that are, like I said, a little on the Looney Tunes, who gets more points? Who gets the most points by end of the year? And
that's fair.
We can even throw a little icing on like a multiplier for if they're relevant in week 17.
No, I think we need to come up with a stipulate. I think it's just fantasy points.
Just fantasy points?
Or do you want to do average, minimum 12 games? That's what I was thinking. Average points per game, minimum 12 games played. Or we could just do total.
Or you can do what Vapor
said. I'll do whatever.
Vapor says they both have to play within 3 games of each other. So they have to be at least in the 3-game range.
Okay, yeah. I have Tony and you have Michael Thomas.
I have Michael Thomas.
I love it.
I have a feeling I'm going to eat this eventually. All right, what would we wager then? What is the wager for this?
A BBM entry next year. That's what I was thinking. Obviously, it's tough with best ball wagers. You have to wait an entire year, but we'll keep a running total of our bets. I'd say BBM entry next year. There's $25 for bet. Is that too much? You want to do? Oh, we could do something
No, I
else.
don't think
That's
that's
what I was
enough.
thinking.
I don't think that's enough. Like
That's not
you said,
enough.
I'm a little egotistical. Like I want, I need something more embarrassing, like something like ridiculous. Loser has to get that player's jersey and wear it on the draft.
No, I'm not buying a Michael Thomas jersey.
Well, yeah, but if you have so much faith in Kadarius Toney, I think you got to rock a Michael Thomas jersey for a draft.
No, let's just do. If we're gonna do a lot of these, let's do like BBM entries, and we keep it running total.
Fine.
We'll keep it running total. We'll get a little graphic made up.
Why
Yeah,
are you hurting our
BBM
money?
entry.
We're gonna be so rich after we win this year. God, it's so simple.
There's a Degen unit.
We're just gonna be so rich already. Oh God, my team is so bad. I should have paid attention to these guys. Make a song and sing it live on the stream.
Oh no, you don't want that. People do not want that.
BBM entries to DGen units.
Yeah, we'll just bet anyone we come up with for the now until the rest of draft season. We'll keep it running total, and then whoever, whatever the difference is, the other person owes them that many BBM entries next year.
Can we poll for chat if they want that? Would they want that as the bets? Like it's just a BBM differences.
Yeah, we could do a poll. I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it makes sense in this space. We just bet BBM. We bet BBM entries. We'll just put that on every bet. We'll put a BBM entry on it. Loser.
You can do that. You ever seen the one that makes you laugh? What the hell is a shoey?
It's where you put a beer. You pour a beer into a shoe and then chug it out of a shoe.
God, man, I have like gross feet. Oh God, I can't do that. You ever seen the one with have to draft wet? Like you have to just be soaked and then draft the entire time soaked.
Winner gets to.
Here's the thing: we still have to wait.
Yeah, I mean, we have to wait 6 months for this bet to pay off. That's what, I think that's why you need. Because if we're gonna do a lot of these, we need like a.
That's so gross. Like I don't know if I want to do a shoey. That just sounds terrible.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think
gets to pick
like
up the loser's
Australian
outfit for a
people do
scream.
That's interesting.
I have really dumb clothes.
Huh? I'm telling you, BBM entry is the way to go. And because then we can do a bunch of them, and then we can, figure it out at the end.
If I win all these, I'm just gonna just upsell it and just be like, "You owe me one bulldog." Like,
I'm
gonna win all these bets. I'm gonna get like
whatever the monetary $25 each, whatever a monetary value of that becomes to the other person next year in entries, and they can choose whatever entries they want.
I like that one too, but Hope does not want to spend on a bunch of these.
You're not gonna buy Kadarius Toney Chiefs jersey. Let's see.
God, that'd be so gross. I would hate that thing. I would hate that thing so hard. I'd rather wear a Tom Brady jersey as like a Dolphins fan than a Kadarius Toney at this point. Like he just.
I have one of those for you.
No, that's gross.
Yeah, but we'll do. This is a good idea from Paul. We'll do the monetary value, BBM entry a piece, and then whatever that becomes, and then there'll be one final punishment. We can think on that. First, the first stream of next best ball season, the first stream.
I mean, they're just going to cancel each other out, so it's just probably going to be like one person that got really punished.
We'll make sure we do an odd number of bets.
There. I'm just telling you. All right. So you guys heard it first. Michael Thomas and KD have to be within 3 games of each other, right?
Yeah.
So if Michael Thomas plays 3 games and Kadarius Toney only plays 1, that still counts. That's where it's at for me. So, winner gets the BBM bet and 1 punishment. And it can't be anything ridiculous. Maybe I'll make you draft like.
No, we'll do something for the first stream of next best ball season, where whether you have to dress ridiculous or.
That wouldn't make me laugh.
This doesn't sound like a punishment to me. I love Waffle House. And
I don't have a Waffle House out here.
You do you have to, for every waffle you eat, you get an hour less. I've seen people do that.
Yes, that one's actually pretty cool. I would be in there. I would be so screwed. I can only eat like 4 waffles. What if neither play? Well, then it just tells us that they both no one should be drafting either of these guys. Then.
But yeah, first one, Kadarius Toney for me, Michael Thomas for Davis. I mean, you can go ahead and send me that. You can Venmo me the 25 now, or if you want to wait. I know we're waiting.
My guy at least has been wide receiver 1 before. All right, your guy can't even see the field. I just don't have
He's
it
going to this year.
until that man sees the field. I'm okay. I'm totally fine against that.
He's going to this year. Trust.
Kadarius Toney can combine all his years and not equal to one of like Michael Thomas's.
IHOP works. Think you could do a pancake. I have an IHOP right down the street from me.
I'd rather eat waffles. All right, we'll figure that out.
I would too. I'd rather go to Waffle House as well.
Nothing says drunk food like Waffle House.
Looster. I was like cooking.
I like that one. That's a pretty good one.
I didn't know where that was going. I was like cooking show. I was like, all right, I like to cook. I can do that. And then for children, like, that'd be so awkward.
It's so specific. It sounds terrible.
But yeah, first one. We'll see if we don't have to do a bet every show, but every time we find a major difference, we'll talk it out. And there might be some where we have to do tequila shots from Stephanie. I don't know about all that.
Should like just make the other person do the show wasted, like just all hammered. Okay, so we'll figure that out on that. But I'm telling you right now, I think Thomas is the way to go over Tony. Tony is pointless. He's going 20 picks earlier. Gross. Oh god. And we have both these guys on one team. You know how bad that team's gonna be if they both don't play. Like
You're okay.
It's gonna be so terrible. It's gonna be so bad if both those guys just go up to their own antics.
Yeah, but what if, right? What if they both play? I don't know. I like the first one. I like Tony. I got that side of it.
You like the Tony side. It's fine. I understand that. I know, but I'm going to go with the guy that's not officially 30 yet, or maybe just turned 30 and has still been the nuts last year. He was good last year when he played. I
will say you've got some Michael Thomas people on your side. I don't know though. Like he's just such a hard guy to trust. And then Olave's emergence.
I mean, you have your quarterback, though. I'll give you that. You at least have a quarterback that's better than.
I'm betting on Patrick Mahomes. Like, come on.
I'll be rooting for like the Travis Kelce year of all years. I want him to have like 2,000 yards.
He just had the year of all years.
He can do it again. He's had years of all years multiple times. He's Travis Kelce. Boo, Steph, boo.
My team's pretty gross. I'm not gonna lie.
I have two quarterbacks in Tyler Huntley. Like you're speaking to the choir here.
That's fair.
I even drafted my tight ends a little too early. I actually wish you kind of had this team though. It's actually not the worst team.
Yeah,
but it's stackless. It would kill me.
I only have one. I only have one stack, unless you can consider Sam Howell and Brian Robinson a stack.
Don't you know Brian Robinson's gonna get news he's gonna get news at some point that he catches more passes. He's been working
I got you know what? I'm not gonna listen to the noise. The Texans are gonna take Stroud to go with Nico and Schultz. Boom, easy game.
You know what, guys? All you Tony voters have forgot how great Michael Thomas was. There is no upside. Okay, Michael Thomas is gonna have the upside of 140 receptions because that's what he did.
I'll take the under.
I'll be lucky if he sees 140 snaps, but that's fine. I'll take what I can get. I remember I was asking somebody, what was the over under? I forgot like one of the blue Twitter mark guys, like, what's the over under on like Kadarius Toney snaps? And he was like under 40 or something. And I was just like, that's so bad. That's like jokingly true. Let's see how these teams went. Oh, I get one last pick.
One more.
I'm going to get my boy Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones over Darius Slayton. I like the old guys.
This was fun drafts. I definitely, didn't change my draft strategy from, stacking for week 17 and playing like it's a tournament for a cash game. But it was a fun draft. We got one more friends and family in. We'll see about what we can get into next week.
Well, next week you're gone on Thursday. You are get to hang out with one of our friends and family, I believe.
Yeah, me and Stephanie are going to watch the draft together on Thursday, so we will not be doing a show next week. So that's gonna be super fun. But
Oh, and just for the sake of it, Stephanie, I believe you're starting a show with Fantasy and Frames too for their best ball
yeah,
content. So like, go check her out.
tomorrow
Fantasy
night.
Frames is great if you've never met them. They're really nice dudes. I wrote a whole thank you tweet about them a couple of years ago because they were like super respectful to my wife. So like, I really like the guys. I don't catch content as much as I should. I'll admit it, but I do like all the people. I've met them 2 times at Canton. So check them out. It's gonna be like her first show, which is tomorrow night, she says. So go catch it. We'll be in the chat too. Yeah. Congrats, Steph. Like, you do best ball just as much as we do at this point. So I'm gonna kind of want to hear what you're gonna say. I know you don't like my picks, but that's fine. But catch it tomorrow.
Absolutely. It was fun. We'll be back next week, probably on Tuesday. Like I said, we won't be doing a show Thursday. First round of the draft. Everybody enjoy the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. Finally get to know these landing spots. And then, yeah, week after next, we'll be right back firing it up. BBM will be dropped. Maybe Puppy 1. We'll see. It'll be time to start firing. I'm excited.
All right, guys. Catch you later.
Peace.